Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issues, primarily one that you see in the United States, but because of mass migration, it's spread to other parts of the world, in Europe and Britain and so on. And it's to do with black interactions with law enforcement authorities, the police, courts and so on. And there's a common sort of factor throughout the world in these interactions that black people have been encouraged for quite some time now, and not encouraged but trained, indoctrinated to believe that the entire legal system, whether it be police or courts or prison or whatever, is all super racist and is just anti-black. And the evidence for this is that there's difference in outcomes. There are, relative to population size, there are more black people in prison or arrested for offences or fined or whatever than there are other groups in the community. Therefore, the only explanation here must be evil, fascist, Nazi, literally Hitler, racism, and so on. Now, the idea that black people may commit more offences or what would be a minor offence because of their fighting with police or refusing police orders and so on, that legal and lawful police orders, that because of that they're being unfairly targeted, or that the police are racist and so on and so forth, and also because simply the black people, well, your authority is not legitimate. I mean, if you want me to pull over, I don't care. If I'm driving along in the car, I don't care. You want me to get out of the car, I won't. If you want me to if you're trying to arrest me, then I'll fight with you, and so on. So what can be a simple interaction turns into a major drama. And then the activists come along and say, well, look, they just got for a traffic stop and it turned into a shooting. The person got shot just because they were made a wrong right turn, or their tail light was out, and look, and that ended up dead. So that's murder just for a tail light. So they gin it up in a way that is, of course, pure propaganda and so on. But why are you encouraging these people to disregard and to fight with and to treat police and all law enforcement as totally illegitimate, even if there are black officers that are making the arrest or making the stop? And you just say, oh, well, they're just flunkies for the white boys. I don't have to listen to them either, and so on. So under no conditions or circumstances at all, any, is the authority and legitimacy of law enforcement acceptable. All of it is illegitimate. All of it is unacceptable. All of it is oppression. All of it is racism. So given that training and that conditioning and indoctrination, it's hardly surprising that black people, with surprising regularity and frequency, want to ignore the orders of the police. Now, this can happen to anybody. It's not specially reserved for black people. Not long ago, I was riding my bicycle around a back lane, which gives me a shortcut. But in this sort of strip of the lane, it's government, a little sort of enclave of government housing, and there's some people there that that they got that look and that vibe that they've had a long relationship with law enforcement authorities. And two policemen were there, and they'd got a guy out, and they were out on like the front lawn type thing, and they were asking him something. It didn't look hostile. I'm at the other end of the lane at this point, and they said something, or they were talking. Then the guy took issue with it. He wasn't a big guy. I mean, he couldn't have overpowered the police officer. I was a little bit surprised that he'd been smoking too much crack cocaine or something. Anyway, he looked like he was getting irritated with them, and then they tried to settle down type look. Again, I'm not close enough to hear what they're saying at this point. He's pushing. Then next thing, it's pushing and shoving. Next thing you know, they're on the ground wrestling with this guy, the police, and they're trying to put the cuffs on him. Now, as I drew closer, they were then saying to me, all we came here was to find out if you knew where Billy Bob was, and look what's happened. You know, and you've brought this on yourself or something. You know, words to that effect. So they just come along to find out where somebody was. The guy decided to, well, you know, your authority's not legitimate. I don't have to tell you. Why don't you get lost? And then before you know it, it's so now the guy's going to get arrested and get dragged into court and face charges for assaulting police and so on, to somebody who's probably already got a criminal history of some substance. So that's not going to work out well for that guy. So it can happen. Those sort of things can happen to anybody. Now, if I mean, not that I have many interactions with the police, by the way, but whatever interactions I have had was being pulled over for a ticket, even if I think that the ticket is nonsense. For example, I many years ago now, I'd be like early 20s or something. I'm going along a road at night, and it's after midnight, and there's no one on the road. It's a country road. It's a long straight road, and there's not a curve inside. So if you're going to exceed the speed limit, that is the road you do it on. There's no other traffic around, and so I'm going along, and there was like a radar speed trap or something, and the guy. Next thing you know, there's a police car, sirens blaring, the lights going, you know, the full drama, and I'm thinking, gee, I wonder who he's after. So he pulls me over and gives me a ticket for going like 6 miles an hour over the limit. on a dead straight road at 1 a.m. with no other traffic around. I thought, you got to be kidding me. And again, you know, the full dramatic chase with the lights and the siren. So maybe he wanted me to try and escape so he could have an exciting chase. I don't know, but I thought, this is bullshit. Well, why is he doing this? But nonetheless, I didn't argue with him or be difficult. You know, he has the lawful authority, and why make the situation worse than it is? So now I've noticed in New York, I think there's a few programs around, they've decided to decriminalize jaywalking, you know, crossing the road without going across the pedestrian crossing with the walk light, the green walk light on, and so jaywalking. Now, jaywalking is something that only really appeared during when motor vehicles started being, you know, appearing on the road in sufficient numbers, and so I don't know, probably 100 years ago thereabouts. So, but anyway, the view is that. But it's mostly black people that get caught for jaywalking. Now, this is something that surprised me when I first started going to the United States, was how many black people just wandered across the road. And some of them, I don't know whether they were high or what was going on, but they just seemed to just saunter across the road without any reference to any oncoming traffic. And I don't know, it seems surprising to me. And I noticed how many of them did that. Now, this is not the idea of you run across the road even though you've got the red light on, because there's no traffic around. This is not that. They were walking actually through traffic. It was reasonably busy, and I was quite surprised. But you didn't see white people doing it. You would see somewhere in a hurry would do a quick dash across the road. That you did see that, white people, but just the casual, boys in the hood type stroll across the road. I was surprised how many black people do. So I'm hardly surprised. There's a lot of them getting booked for jaywalking. But the idea is, well, why don't we just do away with the law, the jaywalking law, that is, and then in that way, black people won't be fined, for jaywalking, and then so they're not criminalized as a consequence. Because once the process is something that you see the black person who's probably penniless anyway. And they've got no intention of paying the fine because police authority or whatever it is, they've been trained to believe it's illegitimate. So they get a fine of, I don't know how much it is for jaywalking, $50 or something. So they get a fine of $50. They're not going to pay it. So the unpaid fine then becomes a warrant for their arrest, and then with added charges and interest and sundry fees that government seem very creative in adding on. The amount probably comes to $200. Then that escalates it to a court case, and before knowing that the guy who the black guy who got the $50 fine is now going to face court, and he's got to be 30 days in the jailhouse, or he's got to pay the extra, or and so on. So it turns into all sorts of other drama, and because the guy's not going to attend to it, he could have several of these outstanding fines, which then turn into an arrest warrant. And so what began as a jaywalking offence is now turned into prison time and also the other thing. Then the police stop the guy because he's driving around, or they manage to locate him, and then he has a fight with them because, again, the police authorities are illegitimate. Why should he listen to them? If they're trying to handcuff him, no, he refuses to be handcuffed. And then he slugs the cop, and then that's now a bigger. So before you know it, then it's a shootout on the street. I mean, goodness me. So the little thing not being attended to because of this perceived illegitimacy suddenly becomes a big thing, or can escalate into a big thing, and again, this turns into having punch-ups of the police, or even worse, shootouts and so on, where the black guy may end up getting injured or even killed. So why don't we just take those laws away? Because the perception is, well, look, it's only jaywalking. Why, and this could end up in someone getting killed. Why don't we just do away with the jaywalking? Well, why don't you train these people or indoctrinate them as vigorously as you've indoctrinated them to see the law as illegitimate? Why don't you indoctrinate them the other way and say the law is legitimate? And there are reasons why there are things like jaywalking fines and road traffic offences and road traffic laws and so on. There are reasons for that. And if the police are applying those laws, then if you've got a busted tail light, then, or you're speeding or whatever it may be, then the idea that you're only being pulled over because you're racist. Now, the other thing I've noticed is that black people are exhorted to say, well, how do I know the cop isn't racist? How do I know the cop isn't racist? How do I know I'm not being pulled over? No, I may be doing 200 miles an hour in a 50 mile an hour. I may be doing that, but the cop pulling me over, how do I know he's not a racist? And that's now a condition that if I suspect he could or might be a racist, even if I don't know that he's not a racist, that gives me now the right to refuse directions or so on. And you see this on video cams of black people being pulled over. Saying, are you going to shoot me? I didn't do nothing. I want to call my mama. I didn't do nothing. And even though they're on camera, dead to rights for doing, speeding or whatever it was. And yet they always went to this, I didn't do nothing. I want to call my mama. I can't breathe. And so I don't have to accept your directions to get out of the car. I don't have to answer any of your questions. I don't have to produce ID because you might be a racist. And again, this is part of the indoctrination. So already the offender is refusing to accept lawful police directions. This will automatically lead to escalation of one sort or another, and will automatically lead to a court hearing. And so that entire process of escalation is brought about not by the cop or the racist cop or anything like that, but it's brought about by the black people being indoctrinated that the lawful authority of the state is illegitimate and they don't have to accept directions. And so when the cops step out of the car, because they can't produce ID or refusing to produce it, even refusing to produce, say, car registration documents or something like that. And they say, well, step out of the car or say an alcohol inebriation test, that sort of thing. And they just refuse to do it, then they're under arrest. So again, that's escalated to something not because the cop was racist or because the traffic stop warranted it, because your authority, cop, is not legitimate. I refuse to do whatever you tell me to do, and therefore, and then that leads to an arrest. So we really need to understand just how much of the drama that black arrests frequently turn into, how much of it is how black people have been indoctrinated by the propaganda machine to say, well, no interaction with police is legitimate, no matter what it is. I mean, you could have, no matter what the crime you've committed, no matter whether it's caught on camera and you're dead to it, doesn't matter. Their authority is not legitimate. The other sort of possibility is, and I see some people talking about this, say, well, why, the activists say, well, why arrest the black person in a high pressure or tense situation? Why arrest them then? Why not just let them go on their way, and then you can pick them up quietly later on at wherever they're staying? And now it doesn't always work out that way. This idea you can just quietly pick them up later and so on. That's not, they're either have no fixed address or they've got a meth lab in the house and they're going to have a shootout. And it doesn't mean that you can just easily collect them at some other time. or they'll be picked up for some other crime later, so you can get them then. I mean, why bother with it? Why sort of engage in a situation that has the potential to get unpleasant? But that works both ways. The cop's still administering the law, and the black person is still refusing to comply with lawful requests, such as showing the license and ID or something like that. So I would argue there needs to be, and you see it in Australia as well, by the way. The Indigenous Aboriginal community is strongly encouraged to believe all interaction with the police is illegitimate, and that in itself creates confrontation situations otherwise wouldn't occur. For example, there was I was walking past a demo some years ago now. Many years ago, I was walking past some sort of demonstration in the days when I had longer hair and jeans and so on. But they there were some police officers there. We told you guys to move on, and I was walking past, not stopping. Now I could have taken exception to that, don't you, and argued, and why don't you get lost and that sort of thing. But why? I mean, what will it achieve? What's accomplished by that? So just nod and just walk on, and the whole situation is diffused. And it's the same. You get pulled over if the policeman says, or the officers say, license, registration, just give it, just hand it over. Okay, Mr. Billy Bob Smith, and they'll give you a ticket or something, and you're on your way. That's the end of it. I mean, there's no drama there. But to try and create drama on the basis of a perceived level of illegitimacy is just asking for trouble. And yet there's a whole diaspora in the United States and increasingly around the rest of the Western world where this attitude is encouraged. I would say it's part of the globalist project for race hustling and grifting. But that's only my view. You've been fantastic today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.